Welcome back, everyone. Sorry, I had a computer glitch and we had to go back and try another computer. So here we are. So welcome back. So we were just discussing, before the break, homelessness people's challenges. So we talked about the basic needs around how basic needs of food, water, clothing, personal hygiene items can be very limited. And this affects somebody's overall health and well-being as well. In saying that, there's also a lot of services out there in our community who are supporting people who are homeless or at risk of homelessness. There are a lot of community centres, support centres, local community groups who run food banks and emergency relief. And a lot of those are attached to different organisations, and they can often help with other financial small needs as well. So thankfully they are there. There's also the use of having mobile vans for support that actually offer washing and drying of clothes, shower availability, and they can use internet and seek some resources for support as well. As a hindrance to, and that's something that causes a bigger impact for people who are homeless, is around mental health and addiction. So for some individuals suffering from mental health challenges, it causes a lack of access to appropriate treatment, and which hinders, stable, secure housing as well. There's also a great stigma and discrimination around homeless people, and the community at large can often create that by having biases and opinions of people living on the street and being homeless. And this often makes them very hard to reintegrate into their communities. So as a brainstorming activity, can you think of other forms of challenges that homeless people face? So let's talk about some of those, that socialisation that actually hasn't, because of their living conditions and where they have to keep moving all the time, really hard to build a support network around them. They never know where they're sleeping from one night to the next sometimes. So access to services for social services can be very complex and overwhelming for many people. And if you are living with mental illnesses, health issues as well, that can limit that access to services and prevent you from seeking services as well. So weather conditions, when we think about living in a tent, and which a lot of people have to do, those weather conditions really affect people's health, safety and stability, and it can pose very risky health risks, especially during cold winters and very hot summers. Think about some of the rains we've had recently. For those people who have had to be living rough, it's certainly hard to then find another safe space to be. Family separation can also be another hindrance. And particularly when shelters do not accommodate entire families, where do the entire family go? So emergency centres, trying to get a hotel or a motel, the cost of those for those nights are very expensive. People often lose all their identity. It's very hard to create birth certificates and IDs from nothing. So being able to have employment and gain housing with no identity very hard process to go through. And this is where you could be, as a community service worker, helping people go through this minefield of having to redo everything, because they will need support. It's damaging to people's self-esteem when you've lost everything that identifies you. So think about immediate relief that an organisation could help. You might know of resources that people can access, but also help people go through the system of accessing and doing the paperwork to get their identities back. So indicators of family violence for those who are homeless. For people who are living with violence and are homeless, certainly that controlling behaviour. And you can see these many situations here that can cause families to break down. And often that coercion to make somebody leave the home. Where do they go? What do they do? People get denied access to cars, money, their personal belonging. So quite a difficult decision to leave a home knowing that this is about to happen and try and find somewhere else to live at that time. There's an activity looking around complexities of family violence. And the actual law around family violence is often complex and confusing. And this can make victims and witnesses understand what is going on in court and to know what their rights are. So it's crucial that you understand what's happening. A lot of people often see family violence as a private matter, and they might be reluctant to report it or give evidence in court. So then it's makes it harder for you as a support worker to be able to help them make these decisions to move forward. And family violence can also be very time-consuming and expensive. So for somebody leaving a home and leaving everything, trying to find money to replace things, it's very hard. For working with people who are homeless, indicators of mental health issues can be there as well, but it's mainly about this hopelessness, feeling helpless, and feeling worthless. This is where us as community service workers can support people to gain some of that dignity back. We mightn't be able to get them housing, but we can try and help and get those other things that can make people feel heard, validated, by just sitting and talking, listening to their stories, getting them something to eat, have a drink, getting a personal pack for hygiene together. Offering something is better than nothing. So for those coping with mental health and who are homeless and being at risk of homelessness, how could you support somebody who was living with mental health issues and about to become homeless? So let's have a look at a scenario. We have a 40-year-old father who has battled severe depression and anxiety for many years. He lost his job to his mental health struggles and found it increasingly difficult to engage in social interactions. This person's relationships deteriorated and they became increasingly isolated. So, can you identify 2 reasons why this person is at risk of homelessness and 2 methods that you might be able to support him? So let's have a look. Some of the reasons for at risk of homelessness is loss of employment. Employment. David's mental health issues affected his job performance, leading to job loss and financial instability. Financial instability is one of the major reasons for homelessness in our communities. Think about the isolation that this person was experiencing. It could cause depression and anxiety, isolating from friends and family, and they might be able to offer some sort of support, but it makes you shrink in and not want to reach out. Lack of access to treatment that this person mightn't have had. Whether the access could be due to costs, availability, or is stigma the reason for not accessing services? All these compound somebody's homelessness, risk of homelessness. Is a limited support system around this person? Do they lack a network to be able to turn to in times of need? And this is where having family, friends, and understanding where your services are in the district to support you as well. So how could we help? How can we step in and make a difference? Giving access to accessible mental health care. Ensuring individuals have access to affordable and quality mental health treatment. Supportive housing, providing housing with on-site mental health services and case management, which does happen in certain areas. Employment opportunities, connecting people up to an employment agency and helping support them that way. Looking at peer support. How will peer support help this person? Can they help establish networks of support, socialization opportunities? So think about those. And we'll just take a short break. Right, welcome back. So let's move on. So indicators of substance abuse. This could be challenges for somebody who are at risk of homelessness and due to changes in behaviour, the risk of taking more drugs and causing financial issues. All these can affect somebody's behaviour, which isolates them away from support systems, which then can turn into homelessness. So think about somebody struggling with a substance abuse, and they're also still trying to find housing. So the challenges that people face with struggling with substance abuse is around affordable housing, putting a strain on somebody and causing difficulties with rent and being able to have related expenses paid. Isolation, strained relationships and social isolation can leave people without a network support and might also hinder them from asking for assistance. Might lose her job. People might lose their job, their ability to hold down a job, their ability to sustain financial focus on being able to maintain a job, turn up on time, do the actual work, might have health issues that are compounding things as well. And all of these put somebody at risk of unstable housing and risk of homelessness. So the ways that we can support as community support workers is providing effective substance abuse treatment and offering recovery programs. There are many programs out there now that are very effective for a lot of people. It's about being supported to make a choice, giving people a lot of information and helping them decide what they would want to do for themselves. You're offering all the resources and the knowledge, and you're helping them, giving them the best informed knowledge to be able to make choices for themselves. There are support services that we can link people up to help them to try and find supportive housing. And some of these housing network places offer counselling and also referrals for case management and seeking mental health support. So it's important that you're addressing underlying mental health issues as well there. So refer. That's what we can do as workers, right? And just helping establish a support network around that person and inviting them into a space that they can feel safe in your organisation. For people who are homelessness, the indicators of child abuse are often there for people who have come in to seek support for housing. And for those indicators, children might be acting and acting out. They might have injuries. They mightn't be attending school, which is very possible if the family is homeless and living rough. It's about the financial difficulties that the whole family is experiencing. These are major impacts of homelessness and being at risk of homelessness. Helping somebody escape that cycle of abuse too is very hard if you have nowhere to live. So having mental health support and advising other services around trauma and mental health support, how to get resources for somebody to understand the different things that they could actually access to support their mental health. But the challenges here are for us as community workers, it's about that education. How are we sharing and sharing our knowledge around resources, helping people make referrals and seek support? Who's giving them emotional guidance and support? We're the ones out there who can do that. We can establish even a mentoring type of relationship around that therapeutic relationship, that we're supporting people and guiding them, helping have hope. Think about that. So what are some of the factors that have shaped Australian housing here? So some of the factors that have changed things over time have been the public housing system that began in 1930, which was developed to provide affordable low-income housing. And many people in the 1950s and 60s took up what they used to call Housing Commission office. And Housing Commission was the low affordable houses that could be rented out, just like we call the Department of Housing now. And you could also buy a new home through the Housing Commission. And that was a very low, for low income earners only. They were very basic homes, but mainly fibro homes. But they were safe, affordable, subsidised, built homes that became home ownership for many people. in the 1950s, the Australian government began to provide construction of private rental housing as well. So in helping Australians have the ownership of a home, in later years, the National Rental Affordability Scheme, and which they call NRAS, provided incentives for investors to build new rental properties that were affordable for low to moderate income households. And it was a partnership with the federal government and the states and territories aimed at increasing the supply of affordable housing for people. That affordable housing supply quickly diminished with population growth and the changes in transitions after the pandemic with people moving, then the increase of affordability, people who had lost jobs, then trying to seek lower income housing, the need then became greater than what the community could supply. So let's have a look at this traditional housing and pathway to home ownership. That there was a program that you can actually watch in your own time. The links will come out with the recording here. But it was about a transitional pace where home ownership became affordable. There's still some around today. They're not as many, but there was a time period where people could actually use their rent as payments for a home. There are many different types of different public housing as well. And that transitional housing, community and social housing, we call public housing, which is long-term rental housing for people with low income. You can be in the private rental system, and that's a property owned by a private or a real estate. Co-ops, they run a board of directors that have a membership where they run affordable housing as well. There are housing associations, which are non-profit organisations, and transitional housing is around that crisis and emergency accommodation. They're often quite small studio apartments, and they might have a setup in a villa type situation. So co-ops are actually quite a good idea in that the housing system with a co-op is to provide affordable housing for many community members. And they're run by a board of elected memberships, which can be part of those community members. So more than 60% of Australians live in private rental dwellings at the present time. And I think those figures have actually gone up. For you as a worker to advocate on behalf of the client, these are the things we need to be doing, actively participating in. We can have all the knowledge in the world around other issues, but understanding your client's situation is crucial, because you're there, you're going to be advocating for the client on their behalf. For you to understand their situation, to help them fill their needs, have some goals even. This might involve having a meeting, looking at what's available, what goals can you set to work towards, and help build strength for that person. How has that person been managed so far to stay safe and alive if they've been living on the streets, they've been living rough, or they've been living at the risk of homelessness for quite a while. That threat of being put out of a rental property, or that Form 13 arriving saying you must leave, we're selling the home, the pressure that it puts on families. So understanding a client's situation is crucial here, to also giving them some hope to be able to move forward. Often you can write written communication to the Department of Housing, talking about people's situations and talking about certain extreme situations there. It's always good to be able to support somebody with that from an organisation with a letter or an email. And it's often good to have a hard copy letter that that person can take with them and say, I'm doing everything I can to the Department of Housing. I'm working with a homelessness centre. I'm trying to get work. I'm trying to support my family. I'm doing the best I can, but I need housing soon. My children are ill. They might tell this story for you. It mightn't speed up things, but it gives you hope to help give somebody something to be able to tell their story. And it's another validation for where seeking housing. It's another validation saying this is what's happening for me. You might even have to go with somebody to the Department of Housing and give evidence to help strengthen their case. So self-advocacy. We want to build strength and hope and agency for people who are at risk of homelessness or homeless. We can support them by building up their knowledge and self-esteem and awareness to speak up for themselves, make their own decisions, understand their rights and responsibilities in all different situations, identify problems that might arise, and for people to be able to ask exactly for what they want. That might help them work towards solutions, and you can make decisions based on those solutions. But it's also very crucial that we also remind people that they have a right and a responsibility to be able to access support and be able to act accordingly when making requests. If somebody's using aggression and anger because they're so frustrated, that mightn't be the time that you can advocate for them. So they have to be ready to do that as well. So choosing a certain time to be able to advocate for somebody with another service is crucial too. Don't forget, we're meeting the client's needs here. They're the ones who are experiencing this frustration, hopelessness, stigma, the concern, the worry. Where will my family sleep for the next night? All these concerns run around in people's minds. So there's another video here around transitional housing and a pathway to home ownership for Aboriginal housing. It's a great video to watch. It's about 6 minutes. So please watch it and think about the outcomes for people. So advocating for somebody's housing rights here. Let's have a scenario here. So we have a person who's 45 years old and they've been experiencing homelessness for several months. This person has lost their job to the economic downturn and struggled to find stable housing. That person has been sleeping on the streets, in shelters, and facing numerous challenges to their daily life. Now, what could you do to help this person advocate for themselves for the right to housing? So to support this person start off, it doesn't cost us anything to help build a trusting relationship with somebody. It takes empathy, good listening skills, and an understanding of the challenges this person faces. And also an understanding of what they aspire, a better life for themselves. What would that look like for them? How would that feel? Being able to do a plan together and writing these things down can help build hope. It can also paint a more bigger picture to work towards instead of the hopelessness that's right in front of them. Helping them understand their rights around housing and tenancy laws. This is a very tricky area. And to gain an understanding of the legal framework that can support people to be able to access housing and to be able to fight for their rights for housing. There's certain services out in our district, our communities that actually do that. They actually support people legally if they've been wronged in any way in accessing housing, been discriminated against. So also too, for people in this person's situation, they've been experiencing homelessness for a few months now, no work, economic struggles, isolation. So think about their social service agencies that can help them. Think about their access to food, hygiene facilities, medical care, and mental health services. These can all be arranged, getting them to a GP. Can we organise for you to see a GP? If they don't know anyone, find somebody that's local in your area that they can use public transport to get to. You, as a worker, might have a company car that you might even be able to take them to. These are the things that we can do to help alleviate that stress, that stigma, that shame, and help bring agency for people to have their voice and to feel respected and the right to be respected. A lot of people don't feel that. So sometimes you might have to connect people with legal support, depending on what's happened in their life that's created the homelessness as well. So they might need some legal support, so that could come under legal aid, and helping them to address any legal barriers that might be preventing them from stable housing is crucial in setting up a new pathway for them. So if that person has debts, helping them make payments and a payment plan somehow, once they've been able to get stable support from government, once they've got work. This is a long process though, but helping them sort out any legal barriers. They might have been black banned on rental systems, which then makes it very hard to go back and try and get another rental. It might have been through no fault of their own. So how do they adjust that? We need legal support. This is where you can connect and refer them to services. So all these things we can do as workers, it mightn't cost a lot, but it means a lot. So to financially give somebody a referral doesn't cost a lot, but it takes empathy, understanding of people's situations, and be willing to support people as much as you can within your organisational roles, offering services, a human kindness, somebody listening, somebody offering a cup of tea or coffee, bottle of water. Would you like something to eat? Sit down and tell me what's been happening for you. That says, I'm here to listen to you. That's how we want you working out there. Be open, be supportive, think of their situation. And often people think about, if I was in their shoes, what would that feel like? How would that look? So all these challenges are there weighing people down, especially stigma and hopelessness. We can change that by just helping people feel heard. I want to thank everybody tonight for their patience with the recording. We had a few technical hiccups in the beginning, but we should have this set ready for to come out to you very soon. And if there's any questions from tonight's presentation, don't forget you can email me at helen@haiderinstitute.edu.au, and you can also make an appointment with a trainer right across the week by using Calendly, and Calendly can help you book appointments with a trainer, and that should be in your learner portal for you to access. All right. Good night, everybody, and take care.